Imagine for a moment that you're 22 years old, working at a gas station for minimum wage, and each month you barely make ends meet. Now imagine that same person, without changing jobs, without inheritances, without any strokes of luck, manages to accumulate more than $1 million by the time they turn 65. Does that seem impossible? Well, let me tell you the true story of Maria, a supermarket cashier who revolutionized her financial life by applying principles so simple anyone can replicate them. Maria earned exactly $1,250 a month when she started her job at age 23. She lived with her parents, had basic expenses like any young person her age, and like most of us, thought being rich was something other people's business. But one day, while serving an older customer who always bought the same things and always paid in cash, she realized something that would change her perspective forever. This man, of very ordinary appearance and dressed simply, casually mentioned that he had just sold one of his properties and was deciding where to invest the money. Curious, Maria asked him how he had come to own property, given that he worked as a retired mechanic. His response was revealing. "Daughter, I never made much money, but I learned to make my money work for me before I ever worked for it." That phrase remained etched in her mind. That same night, Maria made a decision that would shape the rest of her life. She was going to discover the secret that separated people who build wealth from those who live paycheck to paycheck, no matter how much they earn. The first thing Maria discovered was something most of us do wrong from the first day we get paid. We spend first and save what's left. This is exactly the opposite of what people who become rich do. The fatal mistake that prevents most people from becoming rich is believing that you have to live first and then, if you have anything left, save it. Maria decided to apply what experts call paying yourself first. This means that before paying any expense, no matter how necessary it may seem, you set aside a percentage of your income for yourself. Not for future expenses, not for emergencies, but for building wealth. With her monthly income of $1,250, Maria decided to implement the 10% rule. Every month, without fail, she set aside $125 before doing anything else. At first, it seemed impossible. How am I going to live on $1,125 when I was already struggling on $1,250? She asked herself. But here's the interesting part. Our expenses tend to expand to fill up our available cash. When you have less cash available, you automatically become more efficient with your spending. In the first few months, Maria had to make some sacrifices. She stopped buying coffee at work and made it at home. She canceled subscriptions she didn't really use. She started cooking more at home instead of ordering takeout. But the most surprising thing was that after 3 months, she no longer felt that pressure. She had adapted to living on less, and she didn't even miss the $125 she set aside each month. This is where Maria discovered the second fundamental principle. The difference between being rich and being poor is not how much you earn, but how long you can maintain your standard of living without working. A person who earns $4,000 a month but spends $4,000 is in the same financial situation as someone who earns $1,300 and spends $1,300. Both are one paycheck away from bankruptcy. But Maria was building something different. With that $125 a month, in the first year, she had accumulated $1,500. It wasn't a fortune, but it was more money than she'd ever had in her life. And this is where she applied the third principle she'd learned. Money should work as hard as you do. Instead of leaving that money in a checking account earning practically nothing, Maria learned about affordable investment options for someone with her profile. She discovered index funds, a way to invest in hundreds of different companies with a small amount of money and diversified risk. At first, he was afraid. What if I lose the money? He thought. But then he remembered something he had read about Warren Buffett, one of the world's most successful investors. Buffett started investing when he was very young, not because he had a lot of money, but because he understood the power of time in investing. The golden rule Buffett applied from a young age was simple. Postpone immediate pleasure for a much greater reward in the future. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next content. Let's continue. Maria decided to apply this philosophy. Instead of spending that $1,500 on a vacation or updating her wardrobe, she invested it in a diversified index fund. And she continued to religiously contribute her $125 each month. The first few years were exciting, seeing her money grow each month, not only from her contributions, but also from the investment returns, motivated her to keep going. Some months the value would drop, and she'd get nervous, but she'd learn something fundamental. Short-term fluctuations are normal, but over the long term, good investments tend to grow. After 5 years, Maria had contributed a total of $7,500, $125 times 60 months, but her investment account was worth more than $9,200. The power of compound interest had begun to work. She was earning returns not only on the money she had contributed, but also on her previous returns. That's when Maria made a decision that would dramatically accelerate her financial growth, increasing her savings percentage every time she received a raise. When, after 6 years at the supermarket, she received a raise and was earning $1,450 a month, instead of increasing her standard of living, she increased her savings to 15%. She was now setting aside $217 a month. This decision was based on avoiding lifestyle inflation. Most people, when they earn more money, automatically spend more. They buy a better car, move to a more expensive apartment, eat at more expensive restaurants. And even though their salary has increased, their savings capacity remains the same or even decreases. Maria did the opposite. She maintained her lifestyle, but increased her savings rate. It was as if she had created an automatic wealth-building machine. Every salary increase translated directly into more money working for her future. 10 years after starting, something surprising had happened. Maria had contributed approximately $19,800 of her own savings, but her investment account was already worth more than $28,900. Compound returns had generated an additional $9,100. It was as if she had an invisible worker generating money for her 24 hours a day. But here's the most impressive part. Growth accelerates exponentially. In the first 5 years, Maria had earned about $1,700 in returns. But in the next 5 years, she had earned more than $9,100. Why? Because she now had more base money generating returns. After 15 years of starting out, Maria had discovered something most people don't understand. Mindset is worth more than a high salary. She knew coworkers who made more money than she did, yet they were living in debt because they'd never developed the right habits. She also knew people with much higher salaries who still felt poor because they spent everything they earned. Maria, on the other hand, with her modest salary but a wealthy mentality, had achieved something that seemed impossible: progressive financial independence. With each passing month, she relied less on her salary to maintain her standard of living because she had another source of income quietly growing: her investments. 20 years after starting this process, Maria had achieved something extraordinary. She had contributed approximately $46,200 of her own savings over the years, but her investment portfolio was worth more than $92,000. The additional $45,800 had come entirely from the growth of her investments. By this point, Maria had discovered the true secret to wealth. It's not about making a lot of money all at once, but about creating systems that generate money steadily and steadily over time. Her money was now working as hard as she was, and in some years, it was working even harder. When Maria turned 45, something magical had happened. The annual returns on her investments were higher than what she had saved in her early years. It was as if she had an invisible employee who paid her more each year than she had been able to save when she started. At 55, Maria made a decision that surprised everyone she knew. She cut back on her work hours. Not because she was tired, but because she no longer needed to work full-time to maintain her standard of living. Her investments were generating enough money to cover part of her expenses. What truly separates those who build wealth from those who live in debt isn't the amount of money they earn, but 3 fundamental habits. First, paying themselves first before anyone else. Second, making their money work for them through smart investments. And third, maintaining these habits consistently for decades, regardless of market fluctuations or spending temptations. Today, at 65, Maria is officially a millionaire. Not because she earned an extraordinary salary, not because she was lucky in the lottery, not because she inherited anything. She's a millionaire because she consistently applied simple principles for more than 40 years. His story proves something revolutionary. You don't need a high salary to become rich. You need the right mindset, the right habits, and most of all, the discipline to maintain them over time. The power of time and compound interest can transform small amounts of money into considerable fortunes. The question isn't whether you can afford to save and invest. The real question is, can you afford not to? Every day you spend without applying these principles is one less day your money has to work for you. And as Maria discovered, time is the most powerful ingredient in the recipe for wealth. The difference between your situation at 23 and 65 wasn't luck. It was a decision followed by thousands of small, consistent actions. And that same decision is available to you right now, no matter what your current salary is. But let me tell you something else Maria discovered along the way, something that can accelerate this process even further. At age 30, after proving she could consistently maintain her savings habits, Maria decided to diversify her sources of income. She didn't quit her job, but she began looking for ways to generate additional income with the skills she had developed. She began offering basic financial advice to her coworkers, helping them organize their personal finances. She charged a small fee, just $25 per session, but used the extra income entirely for her investments. What she had learned managing her own finances had become a valuable skill that others were willing to pay for. This point is crucial because Maria had understood something that many fail to understand. Real wealth is built by creating multiple streams of income. It's not about relying on a single salary, no matter how high, but rather about creating different sources that work together. Over time, this extra income grew. Maria began teaching small financial workshops on weekends, writing articles for local personal finance blogs, and even created a short online course on how to save on minimum wage. Every extra dollar she earned had a purpose: to increase her investment capacity. The fascinating thing is that this additional income didn't require a large initial investment of money, but rather an investment of knowledge and time. Maria had transformed her personal experience into a source of value for others, generating additional money that exponentially accelerated her financial growth. One of the most powerful lessons Maria learned was about opportunity cost. Every dollar she spent on unnecessary things was not only a dollar less in her pocket, but also all the future returns that dollar could have generated over decades. This perspective completely changed her relationship with money and her spending decisions. In conclusion, Maria's story teaches us that turning a minimum wage into wealth is not only possible, but follows a predictable pattern based on fundamental principles. First, develop the right mindset about money. See it as a tool to create freedom, not just for spending. Second, implement automatic savings and investment systems that don't depend on daily motivation. Third, continually educate yourself about finances and investments to make increasingly smarter decisions. Fourth, create multiple sources of income by leveraging the skills and knowledge you've acquired. Fifth, maintain discipline and consistency for decades, understanding that wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. And finally, protect and optimize your accumulated wealth so that it continues to grow sustainably. Maria's transformation from supermarket cashier to millionaire in 42 years proves that money doesn't discriminate. The principles work the same for someone earning minimum wage as they do for someone earning more. The difference lies in applying them or not. Wealth isn't a privilege reserved for a select few. It's the predictable result of smart decisions maintained over time. Today, you can make the first decision Maria made decades ago. Pay yourself first. It doesn't matter if it's $65, $130, or $260 a month. The important thing is to get started, be consistent, and give the process time to work. Remember, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. If you found Maria's story helpful and want to apply these principles to your life, share this video with someone who could also benefit from this information. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive more content on personal finance and wealth building. See you next time.